right now, this moment, is a time of massive destruction, a time when everything in your world is being destroyed, and it's amazing, it's awesome, it's exciting, because you see it as destruction, and it is. Everything is ending, but it's being replaced with things that are better and better. Every day things are changing. And not just now, all through history things are changing. Geography is changing, governments are changing. Your own past is changing. Tragedies you remember in your childhood never happened. Bad relationships that define who you are disappearing. Struggles with health or social skills or ability to understand or whatever limits that have defined you are disappearing right now. And the thing is, the vast majority of you aren't even noticing. And of that 20% maybe who notices some of these Mandela effect changes, maybe 5% are noticing some of the bigger changes. And it's a tiny fraction of 1% who's really remembering the massive things that have happened. This is the basic message that I want to convey to you, is that everything you have known is being destroyed, eradicated, lost. But you aren't going to miss any of it. This is the end of the world, but you won't notice, because each time a little piece fades away, a new world, a piece of the new world takes its place. And you look around and say, well, there's a whole world here. How can it be the end of the world? And someone can point out to you, someone who's paying attention, all these things that used to be true. But you won't remember, you won't believe. You'll remember some of the surface things. If you build it, they will come. Interview with a vampire. Mirror, mirror on the wall. But maybe 80% of humans will. Maybe 20% are noticing these little changes, and 80% are saying, no, you're wrong, it's always been this way. The people of stoicism and fear trying to hold on to some image of stability, saying it's always been magic mirror on the wall, I can prove it, I can debunk your Mandela effect. It's like we're suddenly transitioning from a long, cold, dark winter, not to the beginning of spring, but to this warm and beautiful summer where everything's growing and we're outside playing in naked or jumping in the puddles in a rainstorm. It's like you have spent your whole life living in a desert, and suddenly it's this lush and wonderful world. Changes of a scale that you simply can't imagine are happening. And this tiny, tiny percent of you, maybe 1 in 5, is noticing the very fringes. And of those, most don't even know it. You can find people going through their day saying, what's the Mandela effect? I've never heard of that. But at the same time, they're still quoting mirror, mirror on the wall. They're drawing Pikachu with the black thing on his tail, or Mickey Mouse without his tail. They're aware of how it used to be, and they're not aware that it's changed now. 80% are aware of how it's now, and not aware of how it's used to be. And a fraction of a percent of you are aware of these massive, seemingly impossible changes going on, and that's okay. There's so much excitement and beauty right now. And there's so many metaphors I like for this. Like a big old bear who's been hibernating in a cave all season, and suddenly something in it starts to shift, and it mumbles and it grumbles and starts to toss and turn a bit. Because it's almost time to go out and see how beautiful the world's become while it was sleeping away the winter. Or like a child being born. So many of you are saying, no, we've always been stuck in this tiny dark place where we can't move and we can't breathe and everything is cramped and painful, but it's what we know. And you're going through this process of twisting and being squeezed in this uncomfortable time. And you're saying, my world's ending. This is terrible. What's going on? When in fact you're not. You're emerging into the beginning of your lifetime. And just like a baby, as it emerges into the light and it begins to babble and crawl and explore the beauty around it, it won't even remember its time in utero. Those memories won't even exist, and it's like that for you. Probably the two metaphors I'm going to attempt to use right now are that of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and if you haven't seen it, go see it while it still exists. And a butterfly coming out of a cocoon, or a small child waking from a nightmare. At this time when most every metaphor out there is true, right? It is the end of the world. The sky is falling. All those things are true, but they're all short-sighted. They're the mindset of the caterpillar that has crawled into a cocoon and forgotten or has only vague memories that it was once just a consumer. Something crawling through life, struggling to hold on and consuming everything it could find. And it spent so much time now in this cocoon, everything it knew melting away, its body changing, its kidneys having moved from its lower back up inside its ribs, its lungs being more efficient, its liver being twice the size, spine being totally and radically changed so that it's almost impossible now to slip a disc, something that was so common a short time ago. Your digestive system's getting better, your brain's getting smarter. It's like your entire body has been sort of melting down inside a cocoon and reforming into some new superhuman body. And you don't even see it happening any more than the caterpillar does. And as you get ready to emerge into the new world, you're not going to say, well, I'm a butterfly. I get to fly around and see new colors. You're going to say, all I can remember is being stuck in this tiny, dark little world and feeling cramped and desperate and nervous, and the best I could hope for was, a brief moment where I fell asleep and I didn't feel so squeezed for a little while. Little moment of joy here or there. And you're going to see this pupated caterpillar, this barely butterfly. You're going to see the world that has protected you and kept you safe breaking, crumbling around you, shredding and falling apart. And you're going to want to reach out with your strange, new, unfamiliar body and tear it further apart. And you're going to see on the other side lights so bright they seem horrible and uncomfortable. And if you do manage to struggle out of your cocoon, Because what's going on now is a world emerging from a cocoon, much more than a world being born. If you do emerge, you're going to sit there shivering, struggling to hold on to the branch as all these strange winds buffet your new wings around, and they don't yet carry you because they aren't dry. They're still a kind of soggy mess, and they're going to slowly stretch and grow and transform. And in a generation, humans will be much more like butterflies than the mindless consumers, caterpillars that they have been and all that they remember. And when they do so, just like 99+% of you don't see the big changes that have happened already. Even the Mandela people are saying, well, I don't see any new Mandela effects. When this happens, you're going to be flitting from flower to flower and celebrating the breeze and the light and the colors, and you're going to have no memory that the human race was once a bunch of mindless consumers desperately trying to hang on, waiting for something they couldn't understand and they were afraid of and desperate for, but hoped would happen. And in a generation from now, 20 years, the few of you who remember this, you're going to be standing in the most populous part of the world, which is the current Sahara desert, where much of civilization arose. And you're going to be saying, wait, civilization used to be in Europe. And people will say, what's Europe? Because the countries that make up Europe are less than half the size they were just a few years ago. And most of you haven't noticed. Denmark's a crippled little wreck. Everything up there is being squeezed and wiggled and changed. And as the deserts disappear, and the Sahara and the Middle Eastern deserts, the US and Russian, Asian deserts, they are all disappearing. As they disappear and begin to teem with life and the Gulf Streams change, the much squeezed area of Europe will become more like Canada. A place where you have a brief, warm summer, northern Canada. I mean, I'm sure there are nice places somewhere in Canada, but much of Canada has a brief, warm summer where you get things done. And this long, dark, cold winter that anybody who hasn't been raised there struggles even to survive. It's so cold day after day, month after month, year after year. And Europe will be like that, and it will have been all along. And civilization won't have developed there. The northern reaches of the development of civilization will be the Mediterranean, and northern Africa will be the place where much of this has happened. And when you're sitting in this world and reading your history books in school, or saying something like, what, are you not educated? Don't you know? All of these things. The printing press was invented in Africa, of course. All these things happened in Africa. There'll be just a very few people out there saying, no, civilization used to be in Europe. And everybody will look at them and say, what's Europe? And you'll talk about it, and you say, Europe, you know, the place where all these countries fought all these wars for, I don't know, to resist oppression or conquest. And subject, object, and verb will baffle your listeners. 99% of people will say, what's a country? And others standing around will say, what's war? And others standing around will say, well, what's oppression? We don't even know what these things are. You'll sound like you're making up a nonsense poem. Oh, frabjous day, caloo, calais. And people will say, dude, I recognize the conjunctions and the participles, but every meaningful word you're saying sounds like nonsense to me. Because soon there will be no war, but it won't be the United Nations enforcing peace or some massive military stopping other people from fighting while they invade their own countries for political and financial reasons. Soon war will never have evolved on your planet. The oppressive religions never will have evolved on your planet. The spiritual path of people will be something that is about exploring and discovering who they are and what's real. I don't mean to frighten any religious people. I quote Sigmund Freud's buddy, Carl Jung, who said the purpose of religion is to prevent the religious experience. Religion as it exists in that world won't be called religion. It will be about exploring the deepest truths, finding why you're here and what it means. What are the larger things outside this life? Where will you go when you die? Where were you before you were born? Why are you here? Religion, as a formal, restrictive institution telling you what to believe, will have disappeared. And there will be this exploration. And science will not be ruled, because of course there'll still be science. You're all curious. As children, you ran around and picked up rocks or leaves or little bugs and studied them and put them in your pocket to show mom when you got home. You're curious about your environment, and that won't change. But science won't be this rigorous field where if you say, well, here's evidence the dinosaurs didn't die 65 million years ago in the Cretaceous period or whenever the current mythology holds. Here's a bone that we can date to 15,000 years ago, and it's a stegosaurus. And science won't say, no, that doesn't fit our model. You're kicked out of the field. We'll never publish your paper again. They'll say, oh, well, that's cool. You found a new thing. In the same way that the religious hold on those of you who seek something beautiful and amazing, the religions telling you what to believe and filling you with fear will be gone, but your seeking will still be there. The scientists, the people who seek the intellect, will still be seeking without the religious type oppression that the current scientific world has. And in this, the so-called religious and the so-called spiritual and the so-called scientists won't be different. They'll work together and talk together, and there will be no war between science and religion. There will be no war between males and females. The war between the genders, which has gone on for 180,000 years of human history, has ended. And you still, if you look around, you see the echoes of it in the feminists who think all men should be in concentration camps, or the men who think that all women should be slaves and are responsible for creating the feminists, the couples who fight all the time though they claim to love each other. You see those echoes there still, but they're fading. There's so much less of it than there used to be, and the only reason you don't realize how much it's improved is the same reason you don't realize Denmark used to be this nice looking country, and now it's a tiny wreck of crumpled land. Or Australia or South America have moved thousands of kilometers. Australia is no longer the land down under. It's crawling its way up into Southeast Asia and Africa. South Africa is much further south than Australia. You don't realize these things. And those of you who do realize that Australia's moved, that South America's moved, that the borders of states and nations have changed and keep changing day after day, that geography and biography and history are changing. Those of you who do realize it, hopefully you can shed your fear and your anger and your fighting enough to say, all right, I've noticed this much change. Maybe there's more I haven't noticed. Because there's so much more. Here's the thing. Anger leads to violence, and violence leads to destruction and warfare and enslaving and crippling people and destroying lives. And so anger has to be eradicated from humanity. We have to reach a place where anger no longer happens on this world. Anger, though most of you may not realize this, arises directly out of fear. Anger is cowardice. Anger is a fear that's too afraid to acknowledge it's afraid. And so it makes all this aggression and starts lashing out. So for just a second, it doesn't have to feel afraid. But every angry person, every person abusing and enslaving and bullying and taking advantage of others, they'll get home at some point and they'll be tired, and as they fall asleep and their defenses drop a little bit, they'll realize they're terrified. They all know it, but they fight it, and they make more anger and more bullying and more abuse to hide that terror. And so more than anything, the fear has to disappear. And there are processes cycling, looping through time right now, from back before humans were created 250,000 years ago. These changes are looping through and happening all throughout history. And these changes are what are causing what you see as the Mandela effect, what you see as the geographic changes. Some of these changes are happening, I don't know, hundreds of millions of years ago, which is why an entire continent can be in a different place. Why Scotland now has a mohawk that's, I don't know, 400, 500 million years old, and they've always had it. But 6 months ago, a year ago, they didn't. Because these changes are happening in real time, but they're happening across the entire expanse of history, and they're happening with a delicately, beautifully guided hand. There's no idiot at CERN doing this. There's no dark cabal handling this. This is all being guided by a great intelligence of the world, of the solar system, of the universe. This vast intelligence taking this tiny, broken little place and working through and across time, because time only matters to the very limited beings, those things that have evolved for 1,000,000 years beyond you. They don't see time like you do. And so they're making all these changes across time, and they're all carefully balanced. And you say, I don't see carefully balanced, I see stupid things. I mean, why is Tom Cruise wearing a pink shirt in Risky Business? You know, what happened to his sunglasses? Well, if I were to take a great big sailing ship, say back in the 1700s, and launch this sailing ship from the dock into the ocean, it would make a splash and it would make ripples. And an individual fish down there would say, what's with these crazy ripples? Life sucks. And you could say, there's this amazing new sailing ship that's going to explore the new world. And the fish would say, what's a sailing ship? What's a new world? All I see are ripples. And this tiny little viewpoint that you're constrained to, not your fault. The human system has a very limited perceptual range, but this little bit that you see can only notice the ripples around you. And so you notice that there isn't a dash in Kit Kat. You notice all of these tiny little changes happening. Why does the A-Team van have 3 colors now instead of 2? Your favorite phrase in a television show never gets said anymore. Like, beam me up, Scotty. That was never said. Perhaps you like old movies and it bothers you that, play it again, Sam, never got said. Or perhaps you're one of those uptight people saying, it was never said, that's just a misquote, you people are not educated. Whatever, you have these tiny little perspectives. You can't see the big stuff. But here's what happens. You can either become like Sheldon in The Big Bang, with all of his desperate need to control. Oh, the roommate agreement on line this and point this says you can't do that, no whistling in the house. And you desperately try and control the world around you. Or you become like Bill and Ted in The Excellent Adventure. Right, these guys, they time travel. They see a future world of peace and beauty where they're heroes, saints. They see a place where they have a successful band, even though right now there are losers. Where these beautiful babes, their word, fall in love with them and they live happily ever after. And all of these wonderful things happen to them, but they're all big and scary and impossible. And you see them right at the start, seeing their more advanced selves coming back to meet them, and they're like, whoa, who are you guys? Who are you? No, you can't be us, you're cool. But instead of choosing the Sheldon approach, they look at this amazing change, and in the immortal words of Neo, they say, whoa. And in the words of Bill and Ted, they say, excellent. And they do. I'm struggling with my health. They do this sort of leaning back and playing air guitar and smiling and this sort of huge yay, this is way too big and impossible to understand, but it's cool, it's excellent. And so they celebrate, and then they run and jump in their TARDIS and travel through time and meet Genghis Khan, who is now called Genghis and not Genghis, and Joan of Arc, and lots of crazy and wild people, and they grab them and drag them out of their world and bring them up into, for them, the present, the 80s, and they run around Santa Monica or Santa Barbara, one of these California saint places, and have these wild and fun adventures, and every time they get in trouble, instead of panicking, they say, whoa, or excellent. Right? They get caught by the police to be thrown in jail, and they just say, oh, make a note to make a trash can fall right here. And instead of saying, shit, it's all over, they say, whoa, cool, excellent, let's change a thing. And they approach every moment like this. And what happens is, 100 or 1,000 years down the road, they've managed to remember their past and succeed into their future through joy and celebration and passion and excellent. And they've become these amazing people remembered through history, instead of the tiny little caterpillar consumers, daydreamers. Yeah, they embraced it with joy. And if you approach every Mandela effect change like Sheldon, that uptight, trying to control and say, no, it's not happening, that doesn't change. You need to get educated, it's always been like that. Or if you approach it with, oh no, it's changing, they're destroying my world, it's AI, it's the cabal, it's the Illuminati, it's demons from CERN. If you approach it with that whiny bullshit, you're going to make fear and spread fear. And if you were Bill and Ted seeing yourselves from the future, like, oh no, that's not us, those are AI demons from CERN, you would have run away and hid and never had your excellent adventure. In a larger sense, I bring you back to this simple idea that fear cannot be allowed to continue to exist. In the very near future, there will be no fear in this world, and there never will have been. It will just disappear. It will have gone and never been there in the first place. And so if you choose to respond to the changes, whatever tiny changes you can perceive. My husband doesn't tell the story that he used to tell, or he tells it differently. It's like living with a complete stranger because he doesn't tell the story, and I'm afraid all the time. Shut the hell up. God, that's annoying. These big, beautiful, amazing changes. Oh, this app on your phone will make an AI demon that will possess you. God, you're worse than the mythical Illuminati or the cabal or whatever, spreading all this fear and hatred in this world. You're gross and disgusting. Shut up. Respond like Bill and Ted, and you will create joy, and life will allow you to notice more. And respond to that with joy, and life will allow you to notice more, until you're like Bill and Ted, hanging on to this crazy telephone booth, spinning through life, and just keep answering excellent, whoa, and how cool is this? And you'll notice more and more, and you'll start to notice the patterns and the good things and the amazing changes that are happening all throughout human history and to a time far before humans. Or respond with fear, and what little you notice will be taken away. Look at any of these YouTubers, because that's where I find a lot of these guys, talking about, oh, well, there are no new changes in the Mandela effect. It's gotten boring. Nothing's happening. Here, let me trace the letters of this logo because maybe it'll change in the future. And look back at their last 50 videos. Don't watch them all. Just flip through. And you'll find them saying, oh, this is scary. This is the Antichrist taking over the world. This is AI demons. This is the cabal. This is the pyramids from outer space. This is Nibiru. And those people who are making all that mentally retarded bullshit that makes them sound like a developmentally disabled 8-year-old who's watched a horror film. They can barely make words, barely communicate, come up with these stupid ideas. AI demons, what moron thought that up? I mean, what moron could even believe that? That's insanity. It's worse than insanity. It's intentional stupidity. Take that stupidity, recognize the power that fear has had on you, and choose to stop it. If somebody's talking about Nibiru or the Black Knight satellite or the cabal or these things that make you scared, quit listening to them. Quit reading their work. Because there is a much larger number of people on YouTube right now talking about this is the greatest time of change in human history. Everything's getting better. Every day these changes are happening. Listen to those people. And if you can do what they're doing and notice the change, that's great. And if you have no control, then be like Bill and Ted. And just hang on tight and say, excellent. And celebrate it and let these amazing experiences happen. And if you can't even do that, then just ignore it. Don't worry about it. Because you, right now, no matter what anybody says, you have zero control. Forces that are billions of years older and more evolved than anything on this planet are carefully and delicately leading humanity out of this broken place. Right? At first it was like triage, like an ambulance showing up at a car crash, just stopping your wounds, and you're thinking it's not getting any better, and they're thinking, yeah, but you're not bleeding to death. And then they're slowly bringing you to healthier and healthier until this huge damaged part of what is, that you know is your world and beyond, begins to be healed and to stand up straight and to walk and eventually to dance and play and sing with no memory of the fear. And when it comes out, there will be a tiny number of you, the ones that are very, very strong, the ones that are very, very open and don't fight the world around them, and the ones who are very mature in the way of a spiritual master, not in the way of some grumpy old guy saying, you kids get off my lawn. Right? These strong, these sensitive and flexible and open, these mature at a meta level, they will remember a lot of this, and they will look back and be able to tell you, there were once wars, there was once racism, there was a time when 95% of you were heterosexual, and you will say, no way, it's always been true that 95% of humans are gay. That's just, and you will be. That's already happening. But you can't fight that either. This whole thing is out of your control. And I appreciate those who are struggling to bring light to the world, saying, you can change it, you can help. Imagine this thing and you'll make it a reality. You can't. This whole shift, far bigger than what you're calling the Mandela effect, is out of your control. What you can do is pay attention. What you can do is respond with joy and excitement and passion and celebration, rather than fear and desperation and hanging on and shutting down. You're like a child in the womb trying to hold on and refusing to be pushed out. You're like a small child waking from a nightmare and saying, but no, in that nightmare, the Illuminati were real and all of the leaders of the world had the same bloodlines and the banking systems were enslaving us all and the secret space projects in Caledonia on Mars were taking all the money and people were starving to death and it was so real. While your mom's sitting there hugging you and saying, kid, that's just a dream, that's just a dream, breathe, relax. And in a short time you'll be running and playing with the other children. You'll have forgotten this dream. You'll have forgotten all these bad things. And they won't ever have existed, because the change isn't happening today. The change, while centered from 7 years ago to 5 years in the future, maybe 17 years ago to 5 years in the future, this change which is centered here is happening all across time and space. And those things simply never will have happened. This is what I want you to understand. You can't control. Think of the, perhaps it's the Hopi prophecy of the great river carrying you, and you're desperately trying to hold on to the bank. The best thing you can do is stop hanging on and move out to the center and let this great current carry you forward. The same sort of imagery is used in Richard Bach's illusions. The little creatures hanging onto the bottom of the river while this great beautiful crystalline river flows above. And one of them finally says, I'm tired of being afraid and hanging on, and it lets go. And for a time it's kind of battered and tossed, but then the current lifts it up and it carries it in the water, and it says, oh, look at me floating along here, this is wonderful. And the creatures hanging on at the bottom look up and say, oh, it's a miracle, it's one like us, but he can fly, he must be a Messiah. And this Messiah says, no, just let go. Stop hanging on and let the river carry you. This is the same story as the Hopi prophecy. This is the same story of many prophecies. And this is what I tell you. Stop choosing fear. You can't stop being afraid, but you can stop choosing it. You can stop seeking out things that make you afraid. Stop watching horror movies. Stop with the violent and bloody games and television shows. Start looking for things that bring you joy and that give you pleasant dreams, so that you wake up in the morning energized. You look out at the world and you say, excellent. Whoa. Right? Make Bill and Ted your heroes in this. Stop trying to control. Go along for the ride. And when you get a chance to do something, excuse me, ow, I'd apologize for that, but I can't help it. When you get a chance to make a change, whether it's a big change that changes the environment for 200 people in the place you work, or a small change, like seeing a beleaguered cashier being yelled at by somebody and going up and saying, you're doing a good job, and you did well putting up with that terrible person, and they're awful, and it's not your fault. You know, relax, breathe, it'll be okay. And that moment, if you've ever done a public service job, of somebody being kind to you, will change the rest of your day, because so many people are not. Right? Where you get a chance to make a change and make the world better, go for it. Right? But I want you to understand what's happening right now is not Neo in the Matrix with death and destruction and squiddies and bad CGI. What's happening right now is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And you can approach it like that, and approach every day. And when you find a new Mandela effect change, don't fight it. Fighting it'll give you migraines and leave you frustrated and exhausted. Oh, my wife doesn't understand me because I see these changes and she doesn't. No, stop all that shit. If you see the changes, celebrate them. And if your wife or husband or lover or children or workmates don't see the changes, and when you tell them they get angry or scared and they fight with you, then you've become the bad guy. You're not waking these people up. You've become the Illuminati. You've become the Dark Brotherhood. You're the one spreading fear and hate in your world. Keep it to yourself. Keep it in your pants. And when you find someone else who sees the stuff you do, talk to them about it and be excited and say, isn't this cool? And then these so-called Mandela changes or geographic changes or other changes are a source of joy, a source of whoa. Right? Quit being Sheldon, shouting at everybody who whistles. Go through life with the energy of Bill and Ted, and where you can handle it, notice these beautiful changes. And if it gets to be too much, then you reach out and say, Life or Rufus, this is too much. Make this phone booth move slower. Right? And they'll reassure you, your life or your personal Rufus or your Bill or your Ted. While you get a chance, play with things, dress up in suits of armor and rescue the babes and, forget what's politically correct and what's proper. Just be happy. And when something that comes along that makes you unhappy or that hurts you, take some quiet time and feel it. Talk to someone you trust about it as a way to let it go, not as a way to keep chewing on it and get more angry, right? When what you'd call bad stuff comes up, it's not bad stuff, right? But when the stuff you'd call bad stuff comes up, feel it, breathe it, notice it, grow a little bit, change, and let it go. And then go back and look for more Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And if you can do that, every day will be more excellent, more exciting, more wonderful. While this, the most significant change that's happened in your galaxy in its entire history, happens all around you. Right? Or fight it and keep making fear, and you will be shut down more and more. You will get more stupid, more socially inept. You'll struggle with words. You'll struggle with your health. You'll be shut down more and more until you can't fight and make fear, so that you don't hurt the rest of the world around you, so you don't hurt yourself. Right? Keep choosing to hang on to the nightmare, to hang on to the cocoon and trying to be the consumer and the angry and the ugly. Holding on to your cabals and your AI demons and your Black Knight satellites and your mind warping, brain breaking Hollywood, Disney conspiracies, and you will be shut down. Your brain will become more fuzzy. It won't work as well. You'll become less socially inept and you'll sound stupid to the people around you and you'll lose friends. Right? You get crazy enough, someone will eventually lock you up. You'll get sick and you'll be choking and struggling to breathe, struggling to make words, dealing with ill health all the time. This isn't life being mean to you. This isn't the Antichrist or AI demons. This is a process, a massive process, billions of years more evolved than you can imagine, that says, I love you. I love all of you, and I won't allow your fear to hurt your brothers and sisters. So you're going to sit here in timeout for a while. And eventually it lets you out of the timeout, and if you start hurting those around you, it puts you back in timeout. And each time you lose more and more, and become weaker and smaller and more submissive and more stupid, until you cannot abuse those around you. Right? Don't be that tiny percent of hate-filled, angry, bitter, brutal people looking for conspiracies and hate. Don't be that, because life, as it loves you, will shut you down. It must. We cannot eradicate fear and anger if you, the people who are trying to be part of that process, are making more fear and anger. Life will shut you down. It must. Make a different choice. Choose Bill and Ted rather than Sheldon or the child hanging onto its nightmare. Choose the excitement and the passion and the joy as much as you can. And when it's too much, go sit by yourself. Hug a teddy bear. Curl up under a warm blanket. Hug someone that you trust who can understand if you're lucky enough to have such a one. And breathe and, struggle for a little while. And feel overwhelmed and feel and breathe and go on until such a time as you relax. And as soon as you're relaxed, go out and find some more good stuff, more amazing stuff, more whoa and excellent, dude, to celebrate. And the more that you seek that out, and the more that you let go of the anger and the hate and the fighting, the more you move away from the fear and into the joy, the more you will notice the beauty and see how amazing this is. Yes, to come back to where I started, this is a time of massive destruction. The entire history of humanity is being eradicated. Everything you learned in school is disappearing. Well, maybe not the stuff you learned in kindergarten, because, what you need to know you learned there, right? all that you know is being destroyed. In the way that when a small child wakes up from a nightmare, that entire nightmare fades away and is destroyed. As a butterfly comes out of a cocoon, all they know of being trapped is destroyed. As a bird comes out of its shell as it's hatched, all that it's ever known is destroyed, and they're just little bits of eggshell left, little crumpled bits of everything they've ever known. But around them is this massive, beautiful new world. This is what's going on. Don't hang on to the fear. Seek the joy. Practice the celebration. This doesn't happen naturally. You have to practice. When you say, oh, that's ugly, stop yourself and say, whoop, that was fear. Let me go find 3 positive things to say. Right? Dude, nice shoes. What a beautiful sunset. Right? I don't have to work tomorrow. Find something to celebrate and do it increasingly like Bill and Ted. The intelligence behind this is billions of years beyond what humans are capable of. So don't try to understand it. It's far too big. Approach it like Bill and Ted. Handle as, we're not brilliant, but we'll understand what we can, and we'll play with everything we understand. Right? And we'll celebrate the things we don't understand. Move away from the fear. Every moment of every day, choose to move away from the fear. Choose to move towards the joy. And start saying, excellent. Right? Radical. Whoa. And as you do, and as others do, you'll notice it happening all around you. And you'll find these people out there that you've never noticed before that are doing the same, and they're full of joy and fun and excitement, and you'll go hang out with them. And one of the people you know, say, who's still hanging on to the angry and afraid, they're saying, dude, you don't hang out with me anymore. We used to be friends. What's up? And you look at them and, make your fingers in that wide gesture and go, it's excellent. No, it sucks. Now come out and hang out with me and my excellent friends. And they'll hang out for a few minutes and they'll either say, you guys are stupid because you're not afraid. And they'll leave. Or they'll say, hey, your way is more fun than mine. And they're going to go from, but AI demons are the Antichrist, to excellent. And they're going to start being healthy and happy. And as you do, you will grow stronger and healthier and smarter and more alive and more passionate, more socially apt. You'll acquire the promotion you wanted at work. The person who would never talk to you will suddenly start dating you. Your marriage will improve. Your relationship with your parents or your children or your in-laws will improve. As you and they practice the excellent, practice the joy, and let go of the anger, the fighting, the aggression, the bullying, and underneath all of those things, the fear. And soon, very soon, within as little as 5 years, most of you won't even remember that there was war. And fear will be considered a dysfunction that is so rare that it happens to, 1 in several million. You hear a case, see it front page of the paper. This person in this other city was afraid. Oh my God, it was so amazing. Nobody even knows what fear is. And it'll be bigger news than 9/11, say, which won't have happened because there won't be war and there won't be countries as you know them. You can't control it. When you hang on to it, it just makes you afraid. Let go. Let the river carry you. This new world's happening. It's way beyond your control. This tidal wave of change is destroying everything. But it's creating something new in its place. And like moving from Dorothy's black and white into the wonderful, colorful world of Oz and singing and excitement, right? Only without the wicked witches and the landing your house on people. Let go of the fear and move towards the joy. Do this over and over today until you're exhausted. Go to sleep and be exhausted all day tomorrow. And the third day, do it again. And pretty soon you'll get stronger that you can just do this all the time. You will begin to notice Mandela effect changes. You never even imagined they're so big. And when you find someone spreading the fear, just walk away. Shut down the video. Don't talk to them. Say, dude, I don't need that in my life. If you're going to make all that hate, I don't want you around. Yeah? Choose the joy, move away from the fear, and celebrate this rapid, wild ride through time like Bill and Ted, this being pushed down this massive river like the Hopi prophecy, or Bach's illusions, or any of these great metaphors. Just let it happen, because there's nothing you can do. Right? Fight against this inevitable change and be destroyed. End up a tiny fraction. And then when you're weak and stupid, you'll change anyway and you'll be happy, but you'll have lost so much. Right? Don't do that. Instead, celebrate it. Embrace the change. This is a time, to finish off as I started, this is a time of massive destruction. And everything you're afraid of is happening. Dark groups are controlling, and massive numbers of people are dying or disappearing or changing. Sure, right? But those people who are disappearing are reappearing somewhere else in a different form, far more full of life and joy. Yes, that world's ending, but it's not ending in a maelstrom. It's ending, this piece disappears and something beautiful replaces it. That piece disappears and several beautiful things replace it. Right? It is a time of great destruction, but it's not a time for fear. If you choose fear, you will be caught up in that destruction and transformed by force until you are happy and healthy. And if you choose to be happy and healthy, you'll just float on your little inner tube right down this big, beautiful, happy river into this glorious new world. And if you choose to say that's too simplistic, if you choose to fight this idea, say that you need the fear, that you need to make a war or struggle or fight, kill, post all this hate stuff, if you say you need that, then there's nothing I can do for you. Everything is changing and you will be changed. There is no choice, there is no control. All you can do is surrender and be changed and have a wonderful life that you will tell stories about for lifetimes to come. Or you can fight it and have a difficult struggle that you'll regret for lifetimes to come. Choose joy, not fear. Choose Bill and Ted, not Sheldon. Choose love and light and life, not fear and violence and death.